Good morning, Spencer County. I come to you this morning sad, disappointed, and downright frustrated. This is my weekly message that I didn't think needed to wait until Friday, considering the latest developments and the recommendation from Governor Beshear. As you are aware, the governor announced a strongly recommended stance on in-person activities. With that, school will continue to begin August 26th, but it will be virtual only until at least September 28th. For those of you who are unaware that at times our children are utilized as political pawns, let me go into some detail about what a strongly worded recommendation means from the governor. That means anyone who decides to utilize local choice and do what they want to do, the first step would be to get a phone call from the Commissioner of Education, in which case I would then take my board chair, vice chair, and legal counsel to meet with the Commissioner of Education, the State Board of Education, the Lieutenant Governor, and medical experts as they attempt to dissuade us from coming to in-person activities. If we still decided that we wanted to do in-person activities, the next stance would be for the Kentucky Board of Education to call a special called meeting in order to pass a KAR, which is what guides Kentucky schools, Kentucky Administrative Regulations. If that does not work, then we've got executive orders. Make no mistake about it, the strong recommendation is exactly what it sounds like. A strong recommendation that will basically let us do nothing if it is in terms of hosting in-person activities or school. I understand the frustration. I know there's a lot of chatter out there. I have received email after email after email and phone calls, and rightfully so, because approximately 83 to 84% of Spencer County parents thought it safe enough to return to in-person activities. I am more than confident in what we were able to accomplish with the hybrid system we had set up to practice social distancing and continue to receive an education, albeit modified from what the traditional schedule would look like. However, I also understand that this COVID thing is the real deal. I don't want to go too deeply into it, but I do know people close to me who have been infected with it. And early yesterday afternoon, I received word that my ex-brother-in-law passed away after a 3-week battle with COVID. So it is the real deal. That said, given the opportunity, yes, we would do in-person activities in a hybrid scenario. However, knowing the consequences of Frankfurt upon us, if we choose to do so, our hands are unfortunately tied. As we look at the consequences on that end, I even went further into detail with a couple of constituents yesterday. With that information, with the spiking rates, and again, look at data, learn, understand the source and so forth and so on, because I can promise you, you'll find just as much data that suggests that it's overblown as you do data that suggests that it's the real deal. That's where you need to become very educated in what we're dealing with at this point in time. That said, if we happen to win everything and still was not taken out of office, as Frankfurt does have the ability to do, to remove me and or board members, then you have the consequences or the aftermath in the event someone is infected. It could be somebody who spent 3 weeks in Miami and comes back here, gets tested, and is positive. Something fatal happens. There's no question that the first thing that insurance companies will do is decline any type of rider, liability, what have you, by this word called negligence. Because we knew, or we had good information from medical experts and chose to do our own thing anyway, we are now negligent in our duties, thereby leaving ourselves open to any type of liability. So between what we were told in a meeting, and I do want to praise Interim Commissioner Kevin Brown and Lieutenant Governor Jackie Coleman, because yesterday was the first conversation in years that we have had where there wasn't a whole lot of beating around the bush. Superintendents are frustrated. They want answers, and we got them. We got the answers we were looking for without sugarcoating of what would happen in the event that we chose to host in-person activities. So I do appreciate that message. It doesn't make it any easier to know that we're going to have to wait to see our babies again, because I can promise you that our staff, myself, our administrative team, everyone in Spencer County Schools as an employee is eager to see our children again, to see the hallways full, to see the classrooms full, to get back to sports and athletics, which is another thing. I don't believe KHSAA has made a ruling yet, but they're in the process. With in-person activities pushed to September 28th, I don't see how in the world KHSAA is going to take on that liability that we just discussed and say, yes, it's okay to play ball. Golf is currently underway, but as you could consider, golf is about as harmless as it can be when you're talking about spacing and so forth and so on. But as far as football, we just have to wait and see. But if you're following national news, you had two multi-billion-dollar organizations, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, hosting schools like Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, USC, UCLA, national football powerhouses, to pack up shop and say, we're not competing in anything this fall. So that's kind of a little bit of the background that I needed to make certain that you all were aware of. Again, as soon as we can get our kids back in, we're going to try so. I think before the announcement was made, we were the only district. Every district surrounding us had already decided to go full virtual. We did think, and I still feel, that we could have done it safely and comfortably with our hybrid model, but it was worth us to try. I absolutely wanted to get our children back in the schools as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, that is just not going to be the case right now or anytime soon. Next Friday, I will have Cindy Hayes, our district nurse, to do this webcast, so she has an opportunity to sit down and go over some specifics for when we do come back into session, because I don't believe if we come back September 28th, it's going to be 100% capacity. I see us easing into a hybrid model, so all the time, effort, and preparation that's been put in to consider various avenues of instructional delivery won't go to waste. Thereby, we'll go ahead and have Cindy next week to do a safety briefing and so forth and so on. And obviously, every week up until the September 28th date, and we'll try to get everybody on board and back, like I said, as quickly as possible. I know there are a few questions. I've got an administrators meeting beginning in a few moments, which we do every Wednesday after our Tuesday joint conversation with the Lieutenant Governor and Commissioner of Education. But I do know that we still have plenty of Chromebooks to check out. Contact your schools. Information for open houses is still going to occur. We've got 500 additional Chromebooks on order, recognizing the fact that we might be forced to go virtual. So we should have plenty of supplies. We do know that there is still a population of the county without internet access. Without going into detail, I would love to hear back from those folks to see if there's any way that we can figure out a way to provide some type of instructional delivery to them. Short of that, however, everything will be virtual and digital. Until Friday, or next Friday, I should say, when Cindy comes, I want to thank you for your time. I do appreciate what we have heard in the comments and the suggestions, but like I said, I'm just as disappointed, if not more so, than each of you for not being able to begin. And hopefully we can put some of this behind us soon and return to normal. The closest thing that we have to normal that we do continue to control, however, is the school calendar. There have been no additional changes to that, and barring any unforeseen circumstances, we won't change it again, because we still have the time needed and necessary to pull an instructional year. So unless we are forced in another direction, the calendar, as it was last modified with an August 26th start date, remaining with all our fall breaks and spring breaks and Christmas breaks, again, nothing else was touched. It is my hopes that will also be throughout the course of the year, that we can continue to do our instructional plan without addressing the calendar once again. So again, that's all I have for you today. I do apologize. I do appreciate the continued support. And like I said, sooner or later, we will get our babies back in these schools. Thank you, and God bless.